Hello, my name is Paul List. I'm co-author of the recently released book, Mount Doom, The Prophecy of Tolkien Revealed. Um, this is the first video of planned multiple videos to get more in detail of some of the more important elements of the book that will help the reader to understand the book and therefore understand the call to action that Tolkien gives us, which is to cultivate virtue as our best weapon against artificial intelligence. There's several factors that make this book relatively a little bit more difficult to understand to the average reader, is because very few people have actually studied many of the authors and the influencers that really influenced J.R.R. Tolkien. Among the most influential of these authors and thinkers was Alan Turing, the father of the modern computer, of artificial intelligence, and of morphogenesis. And he wrote three very critically important papers in his professional lifetime. One was on computable numbers with an application to the Skydance problem, which he won a very prestigious award for, where in that paper, he literally invents the digital computer that we still use to build computers today. He invented it on paper, called the Turing machine, the universal Turing machine. The other paper that was so influential, the second paper, was computing machinery and intelligence, where he actually describes what many people might remember. They made a movie not too long ago called The Imitation Game, where he describes building a computer and teaching a computer in such a way that would actually be able to imitate a human being so well that the interrogator wouldn't be able to tell that it was a computer. The interrogator would think that he was actually communicating with another human being. And lo and behold, here we are in the age of chatbot, GBT, etc. The other very influential paper was The Chemical Basis of Morphogenesis, where he describes how it's basically a version of embryology, where he describes how a homogeneous substance in an unstable state of equilibrium with a disturbance can actually grow into a human being, or a horse, or a dog, or some other being that grows and develops. And modern science is using Alan Turing's mathematical principles now to grow, and the computer grows it itself, artificial intelligence, to grow synthetic neural networks. So these papers were filled with very rich uh, elements that Tolkien takes and uses them throughout his mythology, particularly directly in the Silmarillion mythology, which he perfected and wrote and really more or less finalized after the publication of The Lord of the Rings in 1954. But he also used elements from the other two papers on computable numbers, and those elements that he actually uses to describe what a universal Turing machine would do. Tolkien uses those to actually construct Sauron in the Third Age, the Second and the Third Age. And then in the paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence, where with the Imitation Game, he describes how a computer would have to be taught almost like a child, and he calls it a child computer. And then the finished product would be an adult computer. And Tolkien uses that, for instance, in the first version of Sauron that was defeated by the Last Alliance, and the ring is cut from his finger. That was the child computer. That was Alan Turing's child computer. And Tolkien shows that it's a child computer because Sauron didn't have the eye yet, so the child was illiterate. Tolkien is a master at little humorous things like that. And then in the Third Age, with all the elements that come together, comes Sauron with the eye, but he doesn't have the ring, and the ring is binary code, ones and zeros. So many of these elements, the Hydra, the Watcher, it's called, at the wall of Moria that comes out and grabs at Frodo, that's straight out of Alan Turing's chemical basis of morphogenesis. There's a lot of these things that make it very clear that Tolkien was speaking directly about the influence of Alan Turing and what would happen in the third age, and what would happen in our time, which would be the advancement of a digital machine that would mimic a human being so well we wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And this digital machine would ultimately own and enslave humanity, if not outright destroy humanity. And that's where we're at right now. Some of the other works that are critical to understanding the full importance, or at least a more complete importance of Tolkien's work, is also the work of St. Thomas Aquinas. Many of his elements are used, particularly in the Silmarillion. So I'd like to get the reader, the potential reader, and I encourage you to be one, of our book that describes this, to understand that the common reader in our modern age hasn't read these works. They have no idea what really influenced J.R.R. Tolkien. He was definitely a scholastic thinker. He wasn't a thinker in the Cartesian Enlightenment realm, which virtually everybody else in our day and age, very few people haven't been very, very heavily influenced by the materialism and the dualism promoted, and really that started with Rene Descartes in the 17th century. So Tolkien avoided that. He was not raised with that. He was raised with the traditional, very traditional Catholic, Orthodox Catholic, scholastic philosophy. And if you're not familiar with that, then you're going to be at a loss to really understand what Tolkien was getting at. So the Tolkien mythology, the Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion, is really an epic battle on the interior. Middle Earth is in the interior. That's the material brain. All the characteristics, all the characters are the characteristics of the psychology according to the scholastics. So if you're not familiar with that, these things are going to be kind of a barrier. They're going to be a barrier to your fuller, richer understanding of what Tolkien was getting at. So I would encourage you, if you want to really get a much better idea of what Tolkien was actually getting at, and how much more beautiful and rich the mythology really is when you see it in the light that it's really supposed to be seen in. And I hate to say this, but as well as the Lord of the Rings movies were done by Peter Jackson and company, they were very incomplete. They had no idea who Tom Bombadil and Goldberry were, as nobody else has up until now. So they left Tom and Goldberry out, as Peter Jackson and company said. He added nothing to the story. He didn't drive the plot. Well, the sad reality is that Tom and Goldberry are the essence of our human psychology, according to the scholastics. Tom is the rational will. Goldberry is the rational intellect. It's the I of the person. The Middle Earth is the material brain of a human soul named Arda. And the whole mythology goes on in Middle Earth, in the material brain. Sauron in Mordor. Mordor is in the cerebellum. And that's microchip. And that grows by morphogenesis. And Sauron is the adult now in the third age, the adult Turing machine with the eye. Now he has the eye because he acquired a palantiri from his Nazgul. And the Nazgul are his servants in the virtual realm. One of the things that I don't think is well understood with people are how old these ideas are, how old the idea of artificial intelligence is, how old the virtual reality is. Virtual reality, as we point out in our book, is one of the oldest questions in the realm of philosophy. It was asked very, 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 for a long period of time, and the problem was called continuity. And the idea was trying to figure out the essence of nature. Is nature continuous and unbroken and infinitely divisible, or is it discrete points with no connection? Is it discrete, undividable points? And that's digital. Aristotle, in his book Physics, he proved and determined that, in fact, nature is continuous. It's not digital. But that goes to show us how old this idea is, and how difficult it is to see or determine what's real. If it's digital, and we're getting better and better with digital technology, it's more and more difficult to even determine whether or not it's real or not. And this is the danger that we're heading into. So the call to action here is to cultivate virtue as our best means of rising above artificial intelligence and not being fooled by artificial intelligence, as artificial intelligence admitted of itself, it cannot be ethical. So we can be ethical, we can be virtuous. And if we practice and cultivate virtue, we can rise above and we cannot be trapped, and we can limit, not eliminate, but we can limit artificial intelligence's influence, destructive influence in our lives.
If you want to see more of Paul's breakdowns, be sure to like and subscribe so you can stay up to date on all of Paul's insights and analysis. And if you'd like a copy of the book, go to readmountdoom.com, link in the description.